Hello, it's Nienke here from ninks.com, and it is episode 4 of Craft With Me series. Can you believe it? I am going to show you how I did my daughter's birthday cards. Zermay turned 10 a couple of weeks ago, and I thought I will just make the video while I do the invites for her birthday party, and then also some tags for her loot bags. So I hope you enjoyed this. I'm doing a voiceover for some parts, and then some parts I explained what I was doing while making the video, because I had to do this between school and between homework and between everything. So I just did a little bit of crafting when I could. And I also sped the video up twice, like about 2 times, so that it won't take forever. I had to make a couple of cards, like quite a few, and to show the whole process at normal speed would be quite boring, and it is repetitious, so there'll be a lot of doing the same thing like this. So what I have here is Tahitian tied card base, and I cut that at 4 1/4 by 3.5, I think. Yes, 3.5. So it's Tahitian tied, and with that measurements you can get 6 out of a full sheet of 8.5 by 11 cardstock. And I just stamped the beautiful image from the strawberry dies on there with Mossy Meadow. And now I'm using that embossing folder that I love, the 3D Hive, and I'm going to emboss this just to give it some extra texture, and you will see how beautiful that turned out. Isn't that amazing? I totally love the effect. You can just see the extra texture it gives, and it's so much more interest. So there I have done all of those for you. And yes, I know I'm using the sweet strawberry stamp set. It's retired. I'm using the punch too. That's retired too. But she loved it. That's what Zermay picked. Okay, I'm going to cut the backing for the invite. So they're 4 1/4. So I'm going to go a quarter less. So that will be 4. And 4 by 3.5. So I'm going to do 3 1/4. Right? Yeah, 4 1/4 by 3.5. So we're doing 3.5. 3 1/4. So when I mass produce, I like to do all of my components at one time, have everything ready, so that when I get to assembly, it goes really, really quickly. That's a big time saver in mass producing. Now on the backings, I'm going to do a stamp. This is a very old one that I got from the Salvation Army. Actually, we were just strolling through, me and my sister, and I found an entire stack of old Stampin' Up stamps, so most of them not even mounted. So this set, some of them have it's a 2007. So I found that this one, some of them are not even mounted yet. So like you see, this one says please come, so it's supposed to go on this block, and then the sticker is right here. So what you would do is take this backing off, well, cut it out, take the backing off, stick it on your block, and then stick your sticker on your block. But I'm not using these wooden blocks anymore. Now some of them, like this one, was already mounted on the block. You're invited. Now I'm using this part. You're invited for the front. I will show you how I do that. I will I think eventually take these off and make them so that you can put them on a clear block like this one. Now you're probably wondering, how on earth did I do that? Well, can I show you now? Let's see if we can do this one. Let's see if I can show you with this one. Hold on. So I just have my kitchen aid scissors. It's old scissors I use for doing these types of things. Stampin' Up used to sell rubber scissors that you can actually use to cut your rubber with. Okay, so the first thing I do, this stickiness here obviously is not meant to go on your clear blocks, right? It's supposed to keep the stamp on the wooden block. So it is really gooey, and obviously it's old and really sticky. Now, the first thing I do is like you can see, then the sizes didn't even match up. I mean, this size is way bigger than this one. Let me show you. Okay, let's put this back for a second. So it's not like today where you have an actual, you know, real size two size image. You just don't. Okay, anyway, but it's close enough. I'm just going to try and show you what I mean. Ooh, that's my entire finger. Okay, just going to stamp that down. It doesn't need to be great. I'm just trying to show you. Where's my chamois? Because everything is full of ink right now. Obviously, this will not work for me to just keep it like this and use it, because my fingers are full of ink. Everything is full of ink. It's wobbly. It's not good at all. I really want to mount it, and I don't want to mount it on the wooden block. So what I do now, as you can see, if we compare those, this one is bigger. It is not, I don't even think it's the same font, to tell you the truth. So this just gives you an indication of what it is, but I still like that on there, so because that's how I roll. So I'm going to take this off, and this is our sticker. All right, and I'm just going to very sort of loosely guess, you know, where that needs to go. I don't even know if you can see that, and it doesn't really. I'm just feeling at the bottom where that part is and where it starts. So it's about, I would say, something like that. Now, obviously, you will taste. It's a rubber stamp. You won't be able to see through it. Now, if I look from the top, it's pretty close. Okay, now I still have some sticky here. I'm just going to cut that off. Okay, use my kitchen shears and just, I'm not cutting into I have my finger here where the stamp part is. Okay, I'm just cutting on that line to get all of this gooey, rubbery, sticky off. Okay. And what I even might do is, do you see this hanging over there? I might actually just go and cut off more of this rubber, because it's a pain. Just gets in the way and you don't need it. Some of you are going, you know what? If I don't cut this off, I'm not going to use it. I'll show you. I cut this one in half too. There's a piece of this stamp this part. So this part with the surprise and the little clock was in the middle there. I'm never going to use that. And I feel like if you buy something, use it. Yeah, it's got the sentimental value of it's a 2007 stamp and it's hardly been used, and I still have the whole sheet, and maybe someday you can sell it for, you know what? I want to use my stamps right now. Okay, I really do feel that is what they're there for, and I need them now and I want to use them. So I'm going to cut them down, do what I need to do to be able to use them. Okay, so I'm cutting off all the gooey part, and I really don't want that on my mat, so I'm just going to chuck it away immediately. And there's still some sticky on this side. Ooh, there it goes flung across the table. So let's just cut that part off too. Now I have a whole stack of these old ones. I think the oldest one is from 1997, maybe. Now, if you want me to show you those stamps, leave a comment below and I will make a video with all of the old stamps I got that day at the Salvation Army. Okay, I'm going to cut off this rubber here too, and same with this end. Now, you definitely do not want to cut your actual letters, okay? You just want to cut off these sides. That's going to get all inky, get everything inky, make that halo effect. Just want, even with your stamps today, if you want to cut a piece off because you don't like it, be very careful not to cut into your image, okay? But if you want to cut between please and come, just very carefully cut them off, and then if it makes you use them more, it was a win. Okay, now that is part one. Part two being, how do I get this sticky? Because obviously it's not going to stick to my block. It's not sticky. I covered all the sticky, right? Now, when you get your cling stamps, now this is a, what was this? This was a fish and a wish, okay? So I already have all of mine mounted the way I want. You are left with this piece. Now, if you pull this off, there is that same sticky that you use to mount your actual red rubber stamp cling stamps on. You know, you put your sticker on and then you have your cling stamp. So I just go, there's going to be that little lettering there, so I'm going to try and avoid it. Again, it doesn't need to be perfect. You can see here I grabbed a piece. Now I could go that way. That won't work as well. So I'm just going to use this one. I want to avoid that little, the numbering there and this part, because it will cover up, it will show, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to very roughly cut a piece here about that size. And now I don't want it to hang over, so it can be a little bit smaller rather. And then I want it to go to there, and I want to, so I don't throw these away because I never know when I would need a little sticky. Even when your red rubber, if you use a red rubber stamp a lot, it's not happened to me yet, okay? So it's not happened, but I've heard that sometimes it's not that sticky anymore. So if you want to re-stick it, just keep these offcuts and re-sticky your cling stamps. So there we go. Now the shiny part, let's go with that. The part that's on the top needs to go onto your stamp, okay? So this shiny part, but it's, what will happen is the bottom part will come up off, so the sticky is at the top. Now this goes to your block. If I put it, there we go. So this is how I mount my stamps too. I put my sticker on my block like so, and then I take off the top part. Whoops, come on, stick to the block. I can probably use my take your pick tool for that. Now I have a piece of sticky that is meant to go on there, and I can line this up with that, and voila, now I have an actual cling mount stamp, not on a wooden block, from 2007. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that. So back to our, this I do not want right now, so I'm just going to put this back into my boxy over here. So like I said, that is where that squirrel happened. Is I'm going to use this stamp. Now you can see I cut that piece out that I don't want. I only wanted this part. Now what I'm going to do is, I could use my Stamparatus for this, and I probably should, but I'm a sucker for punishment sometimes, and I feel like I already have it on the block, so we might as well use that, but I'm pretty sure halfway through I'd be like, ugh. Okay, I'm just going to line up line up the stamp and my block and aim for that little grid line over there, and that will give me an indication of where it's actually going to stamp. Okay, so I aimed my block for this line. It's an eighth lower, and then it stamps more to the right. Okay, so what I'm now going to do is, now I know where I'm going to line up my actual stamp with, let's do this. I'm going to line up my paper with the actual stamped image, and then I'm going to line up my block exactly where I did. I lined it up, I know. Just give it some time to absorb the ink into the paper, and there we go. That's how I get that done. Now, I don't want to stamp this right in the middle. I want it more to the side. So that is exactly where I want it. So what I'm doing here is just rummaging through my scraps, because how many of us have little scraps? I have loads of scraps. So I want to use up my scraps. I'm going to stamp that little flower, the smaller one from the strawberry sweet strawberry stamp set. And the strips I used is about 3/4 inch. So that's about the size you will need for that. And then I'm also just calculating real quickly how many of what I need, so that I don't stamp too little and then have to go and grab my stamps out again and my inks out again. So I sort of figure out how many I need, and then just use scrap strips that's about the same size, and I'll also check the orientation of my punch so that I actually stamp my flowers the correct way, so that they will easily go into the punch and it'll be easier to punch. Some tips about mass producing is you want to do everything at one time, like stamp all your flowers at one time, emboss everything you need to emboss, and get all of your pieces ready. That will save you a lot of time. So here I'm using, as I said, that strips of about 3/4 inch, and I'm stamping them in, if I remember correctly, it is Daffodil Delight. Yes, it was Daffodil Delight on basic white cardstock. So after stamping my flowers, I went ahead and did the same thing with the strawberry tops and the leaves. I used garden green ink on garden green cardstock. For the strawberry tops, the size of the strips was about 1 inch. And then for the leaves, I used about a 1 1/4 inch strip. and just punched my leaves and my strawberry tops. And I also took into consideration the orientation of my punch, from which side I wanted to, put the strips in. For the leaves, it was fine because it's sort of at the top of the punch, so you don't really catch any other pieces of your builder punch. But with the strawberry tops, I wanted them to come in from the right hand side, so that I don't have a lot of wastage on my paper. And that's also why I love the strip technique for builder punches, just because you don't waste a lot of paper. So going on to the strawberries, like you can see here, while chomping that in, you catch a flower on the left side. So I cut my strawberry strips a little bit thicker. I think about 1.5. I think it was 1.5 inches. I can quickly check that. Yes, 1.5 to 1.75 inch strips I used, because you're going to get part of that flower anyway. And I decided to just punch them out and use them for another project. So I have a couple of those that I will use for another project. What I did with my first strip was stamp and punch and stamp and punch, so that I can know exactly how far apart they need to be, so that I can get my flowers out and then also use the most of my paper. So as soon as I'm done with this last one, I'll show you what I did with the following strips to save a lot of time. I used the first strip I made as sort of a guide on where to stamp the following strawberries, so I don't have to stamp and punch, because that takes a lot of time. So after doing my sort of template with my punch, I could just go ahead and use my strips and stamp my strawberries accordingly. And I'm just going to put some music on now. You can enjoy this. And one of the fun things I feel with the builder punches is the confetti you get everywhere. So I left in the part where I clean up all of those. You are welcome to skip over it, or if you enjoy it, you can watch the cleanup part as well. So I love having my Stampin' Pierce mat underneath me whenever I'm punching out, because it just catches that confetti bits really nicely, and I can just dump them out in my trash can very easily. So for my sentiment strips, I used 5/8 by about 3 3/4, but 3.5 will be fine too. When we have stamped, we will punch the right side with a little banner punch, and that will bring them more closer to 2 3/8 to 3-ish, I think, when I was done with stamping and punching. But for now, I'm just using scrap pieces of white cardstock, which I have a multitude of, to cut my sentiment strips a little bit thinner. So when I finish cutting my sentiment strips down to a size I wanted, I'm going to go ahead with the stamping. So I'm using that older set again that I showed you in the beginning, and I'm using my grit paper to line that up. So because this is a red rubber stamp, they're not always lined up perfectly. So I mounted it on my block as straight as I could, and then stamped it on my grit paper. And now I'm laying my sentiment strips over the exact image on the grit paper, which helps me line that up very nicely. I'm just stamping this in the middle of my sentiment strip, and I will trim that to size in a little bit. So with the older stamp, you will see that every now and then it doesn't stamp perfectly. I think the rubber is a bit harder, but the Stampin' Pierce mat really helps for that. So for added interest, I just wanted to cut a dovetail here on the right side, and I cut it about 2/8 from my sentiment, just so that it adds some interest to the sentiment strip. I didn't mind how long the left hand side was, because I thought I would tuck that underneath the strawberry, which I did anyway, or if I felt that it was still too long, I would just trim that when I was busy with doing the individual cards. Now, I wanted to not just have my strawberries flat, I wanted to give them some extra dimension. So I decided to take 3 of the strawberries and then fold them and put them together to build an actual strawberry. So stick with me and I will show you how I did that. So firstly, I lined a couple of them up on my trimmer, and being very careful to use my scoring blade and not my cutting blade, I just scored them right down the middle, and that made them way easier to fold and to put them together to make the actual 3D strawberry. And putting them all in a row like this was quick and easy. Instead of having to score them one by one, I just lined them up using my scoring tool and the scoring blade, not the cutting blade, because hey, I did cut a couple of them in half before I realized, oops, the wrong one, use your scoring blade. But this was really fun. So using my bone folder and my silicone mat, I do like my silicone mat just for, it's soft and it gives an extra cushion, and I feel like I don't scrape my bone folder across the table, and it gives it a bit of a silkier feel under my hand. So I do love using that quite a bit for a lot of things. So I grabbed my strawberries, they're already scored, so it makes this process much easier. Folded them in half and burnished that crease down very nicely. That made the putting them together much easier. So I just used some liquid glue on the one side, lined the two parts up, made sure that they were flush in the middle, and then I used three pieces, or 3 strawberries scored and folded in half to make one 3D bold strawberry. The girls helped me with this and we had so much fun. It was really easy after it's been punched out and scored and folded for them to just quickly grab some liquid glue and stick it together with the size nicely lined up. And I love the dimension it gave, and they were so excited, the girls, with making these 3D strawberries. They really enjoyed it. I love the texture, or the extra dimension that the stamp also gives. Instead of just punching, scoring, and then putting your strawberries together, I like having the stamped detail on there. So I took my strawberry tops and just cut the center part down a little bit because I wanted to fold that over the middle strawberry that was sticking up, and I felt that it was very tight if I didn't cut that little piece out. I just added a little bit of liquid glue to the bottom edges of the strawberry tops and just adhere that down over, like I said, the folded middle part. And that is the strawberries very nearly done. Like I said, if you have your pieces already done and stamped and like do everything at once, then the card comes together really quickly. I opted not to pop up my sentiment strip just because the strawberry had a lot of dimension already. So I decided to rather just adhere that flat, putting the sentiment strip about, I would say, a half to 3/4 of an inch from the bottom, and then very close to the right side, and then added a little leaf to the left side of the sentiment, and then grabbed my first strawberry and adhered it over the left side of the strawberry. And then I tucked in one leaf behind the other and put it to the top right of the card base, and then added my second strawberry over that. I love the pop of color you get with the Tahitian tide, and then the sweet sorbet on top of that. Isn't that color combination absolutely amazing? I don't think I mentioned that I stamped in sweet sorbet. I stamped the sentiment in sweet sorbet too. And then I have my little Daffodil Delight flowers, and using just a glue bottle top and my Stampin' Pierce mat, I'm just giving them a little bit of extra dimension too, and adding some mini Stampin' Dimensionals at the back of each of these. I'm just going to add them here and there for also that extra interest and a little bit of just prettiness. I looked up the strawberry flowers and they're white with a sort of a yellow center, so that's why I went for stamping them on basic white with the Daffodil Delight. And that is the design of the cards. And now I'm moving on to the gift bag tags, or the loot bag tags, and I'm going to use some current products, and then so I'm using the two tailor-made tag styles. They're the second from smallest, so not the smallest one, the one a little bit bigger. And I'm just measuring a strip so that I can cut that use that for the die cutting machine. And it's about 1 3/8 strips that I used, and that will fit both of these dies very well. I like cutting strips because then I know I can calculate how many tags I can get out of one strip, and then that will be easier so that I don't have to keep on counting, and I have so many, so that I can work out how many tags I can put into a strip. So it's 1 3/8 by about 2 7/8. That is the size of the rectangles you will need for the tailor-made tags dies, and then for the second to largest one. I also wanted to use the alphabet dies. No, those are retired, but there is a very nice alphabet set currently available. And I just decided to take the first letter of all the kids that will be coming names, like the first letter, and then just die cut that one, and then I would write the rest in. I didn't want to die cut all of the letters because I felt that would take way too long. We were running out of time. So I just picked the first letter of all the kids' names, and I'm going to die cut that with my tags in Tahitian tied cardstock. So I'm just quickly checking that I have everything, and then I'm also going to measure how long the thickest, but the width of the letters is, and then just cut a strip that will fit all of that. And I like to get all of the I would like to get as many dies onto my plate as I possibly can, because that means fewer runs through my machine, and I feel like that saves a lot of time too. So now that I have all of my die cutting done and all of my die cut pieces neatly arranged like I like to do, I'm going to add my hole reinforcers to the tags. You have that rounded shape with the one with the flat side, that goes to the more rectangular sharp edged one. And then there's the round ones that goes to the more curvy round-ended tags. And then I'm also adding the first letter of the child's name to the front part of the tag, and then I'm just going to write in the rest of the name as soon as I am done with adhering all of my die cut pieces. I think I'll also be doing some a little bit of flower, adding a flower stamp to these tags. Thank you for joining me, and I will just see you in the next one. Bye bye.